all these policies. One is, unlike most of us here, there are people in the world of comic that have a very fragile hold on reality. I worry about those kinds of people who have delusions and fixed delusional disorders.
Oh, and we get letters. We get letters. We do all the time.
What kind of documentation are you going to provide to show that this stuff is all?
Well, when you start talking, when you get into it and you have time travel and you have all that kind of stuff, you can't be taken to, if you don't get the joke, I don't think any documentation is going to help.
Farmer himself, and even in his bio where he was treating Tarzan as a real person, he said Tarzan is immortal. He's immortal. He's going to live forever. I mean, if you're not clued in that this is not really taking place in the real world by that, I don't think we can help.
The other point is, this is not the first time this has been done historically. There's a writer named Stendhal, who wrote Short House of Parma and Yogi Black. He invented locations in Italy that people went to.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah, there's other things like that.
Well, I was just wondering, like, do you do a lot of, like, research into, like, postmodern studies and kind of, like, reality as construction kind of thing? Because it fits so perfectly.
Right, no, well, this is one of those things where the dearth of advanced degrees, you know, if I bring up postmodernism, people don't like it. Or, you know, I talk about theories of myth. I actually raise academic stuff on the lists, and it's kind of rejected. And it's just a lack of training. You know, if we had a bunch of people who had academic work or, you know, advanced degrees, it would change.
For the most part, it's more like, hey, wouldn't it be cool?
Yeah, well, and I don't think, like, that you can, you know, minimize. I mean, that is what's so cool about it. But at the same time, like, the implications, I think, are larger than just having fun.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
For Pete, do you ever find yourself getting bad habits working on the tools and stuff and then going back?
Absolutely. I really got involved in it when I was finishing up my dissertation, and the reason is that wold newtonry is everything fun about scholarship and none of the drudgery. And the weird thing is, you discover stuff. We needed somebody to have a background in chemistry, and then one of the characters we were dealing with, I have this thing where somebody's multiple characters over time, and this guy was many, but it turned out in Nightwind by Barrett Barney, came out in like 1914. He had studied chemistry in college. We needed him to be an orphan. Turned out he was an orphan. It was all this weird that we're like, it's real! Another example of that is that we came up with a theory on Smallville that it's not Jor-El but Zod who sent his son, because we already have a Superman established, so this couldn't be. So we have, and so it's Bo Duke. I mean, on Ed Farm, and he's married to Lana Ross, which is from the Superman movie, and of course it's not Kal-El, but Kal-El Zod. And then, here's the thing that happened. We thought that up in the middle of the second season, I think. If anybody remembers Smallville, the end of the first season, they had Jor-El come on, and they had an actor play him. And that actor was Terrence Stamp, and Terrence Stamp played Zod in the movies. And so we were on, you know, they were telling us, there's somebody over there in the production company that's trying to get the information out to us, to warn us. And then I got up last year and asked, you know, is it Kal-El or Kal-Zod? And they said no. And then, so now we're trying to tell you. But it's all fun. But see, that's the kind of weird discovery you make. It's like... Other questions?
When you move on, as we move into the future, there are things in some of this literature that pertains to the future, that makes predictions about the future. But when the future happens, like a big event, like President Bush is president now, you eliminate possible futures as you move forward.
That would eliminate many possible futures,
Right.
but President Bush
but actually, there's a way of dealing with that. The sort of standard future is Star Trek. That's become the kind of consensus future.
Yes.
And a friend of mine, a writing partner, we wrote an article called From Trek to Legion, showing how you move from Star Trek, which doesn't seem to have superheroes, to Legion of superheroes where you do. We came up with a rational explanation for why that happened. And one of the what I'm doing, we're writing an article that's in the future. We're actually reversing some of the order that the Legion stories were published in. And we have a way of explaining retcons, which is that, you know, the future changes when the past does. And so then the stories that come back to us through time travel change. And so, you know, you think there's this nice one-to-one relationship with 1,000 years in the future, but the stories come back in the wrong order. Well, we pretend that the writers at Marvel and DC and obviously all the other companies have access to files. And they get these things. And so that's where their sources come from, their adapting sources. So the future changes depending on what's in the present.
Our brains work the same way that conspiracy theorists do, but we don't stockpile weapons. We don't stockpile weapons.
How do you deal with, like, if somebody were to come out with a Tarzan meets Dracula? I don't know if that's already been done, but how do you deal with that?
Well, if it's good, if it's well done,
well, yes and no. Sometimes we don't bother with whether it's good or bad, but whether it will fit in and leave it up to other people whether it's good or bad or not. But we take the events that are described and see whether they'll fit into the timeline or not. If they don't fit into the timeline, we'll treat it
like a fake diary or...
Yeah, one of two ways. We'll either come up with an article that'll explain the discontinuities between what we've accepted and what's in that, or else we'll just say, you know what, there's too much here to explain, it's too big, our explanation would make no sense, we'll just shunt it off into an alternate universe.
I actually have a 100-page article that's on CD, which you can get, which deals with all the different ways we do that stuff. But of course, the other thing is there's multiple Tarzans and multiple Draculas, which I won't go into. And so it could have been a meeting between one of them as opposed to the sort of canonical character. Is there a question?
Well, then how do you deal with it when, say, Sherlock Holmes meets Jack the Ripper in several different stories?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
Ellery Queen did it.
absolutely. And because I wanted Ellery Queen to be in the wold universe, and I didn't have another good connection for Ellery Queen, I chose the Sherlock Holmes Ellery Queen. Sometimes it's just based on personal decision. It wouldn't be great to have Ellery Queen in. That's the only connection I have.
That little bit of the Baring Gold.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. We dropped that piece of Baring Gold and incorporate that. Of course, I found another connection for Ellery Queen later through the Maze Agency comic book, but that's another story.
Okay, and we just, I think we've got to kind of finish up now. Was there a last question?
What's the difference, the relations between the Wold community and fanfic community online? Do you look down on them? Or
We're better looking.
Basically, the difference is that this is a form of fan fiction, but we don't entirely. What I look at it as, I was in a discussion with somebody, and he talked about making, I don't know, somebody be something, and it's like, no. We discover stuff, but we don't make anything happen. And there is a sense in which the evidence can resist you, where something just won't fit because the evidence isn't out there to support it.
Fan fiction also seems to be people that weren't satisfied with what the original creators did with a show or something, so they like, this is what should have happened. We try to stick as close to possible and to keep in the continuity of what the original authors did.
Another way of looking at it is that fan fiction adds to what's published, right? Adds more and more. Eventually, what we do is we excavate. So that's another way to look at it. We try to show the true story behind the sort of archipelago of texts. That we try to fill in the details and resolve contradictions that are in the original text.
And then the last piece in terms of how we treat fan fiction is, I think it's great, but there's enough published fiction out there to keep me going, professionally published fiction, and I honestly don't have time to sift through all of the wealth of fan fiction out there and choose, well, this yes, this no.
Yeah, I talk about in here. I talk about legitimacy, and fan fiction doesn't have legitimacy with most Wold Newt scholars. Now, the thing about Wold Newtry is you can do whatever you want. There are Wold Newt scholars who accept fan fiction, but other people don't accept their articles. And I think we've got to wrap it up. So thank you very much.